Linda was a young girl who grew up under the care of her single mother, Agnes. Agnes had Linda when she was just 16 years old, and that experience changed her life forever. She turned to God, becoming deeply religious and vowing to raise her daughter with strong values. But Linda was nothing like her mother. By the time she was 15, Linda had already started dating. She never truly loved any man she was with. Instead, she saw them as tools to get what she wanted: money, gifts, and a luxurious lifestyle. Unlike her mother, she had no interest in religion. She often mocked her mother's faith, reminding her that at least she wasn't a teenage mother like Agnes had been. These words cut deep, but Agnes never gave up on her daughter. She prayed for Linda every day, hoping she would one day change. Linda was known for her rude and disrespectful behavior to anyone she met, including neighbors and teachers at school. At school, she had no respect for her teachers. One afternoon, during an English lesson, Mrs. Adams, a kind but firm teacher, asked Linda why she hadn't completed her assignment. "Linda, you haven't submitted your essay. Do you have any reason for this?" Mrs. Adams asked, her eyes full of concern. Linda scoffed and leaned back in her chair. "I don't have time to waste on useless schoolwork. Unlike you, I have a life," she said, flipping her hair. The entire class fell silent. Mrs. Adams took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. "Linda, education is important for your future. You must take it seriously." Linda rolled her eyes. "Please, don't act like you care. You're just doing your job." Mrs. Adams shook her head sadly. She knew Linda was troubled, but there was only so much she could do. Despite her arrogance, Linda had a soft side. She was generous to strangers, often giving away her last cash to someone in need. This was one of the reasons people still cared for her, despite her flaws. At 18, Linda got into the university. There, she met her best friend, Faith, on registration day. It was a chaotic scene with students rushing to complete their enrollment. Linda, impatient and frustrated, bumped into a girl who was struggling to carry her documents and books. "Watch where you're going," Linda snapped, adjusting her handbag. The girl looked up and smiled instead of getting angry. "I'm sorry, I didn't see you. My name is Faith. Are you also trying to complete your registration?" Linda was taken aback by her calmness. "Yeah, this whole process is annoying. These officials are so slow." Faith chuckled. "Patience is key. We'll get it done eventually." Something about Faith intrigued Linda. She was different, kind, and her presence was calming. They ended up helping each other through the registration process, and by the end of the day, they discovered they had been assigned as roommates. From that moment, they became inseparable. People often mistook them for sisters. However, they were complete opposites. Faith was a devoted Christian, attending church every Sunday, while Linda spent most of her time with different boyfriends, collecting money and gifts. Faith constantly begged Linda to join her in prayer or at church services, but Linda always refused. "I know God will protect me, Faith. I don't need to go to church for that," she would say with a laugh. One cold morning, as Linda returned from a night at one of her boyfriend's places, she noticed a young boy sitting by her hostel gate. He looked weak, his clothes tattered, and his skin covered in dirt. She was about to walk past when something made her stop. "Hey, kid, what's wrong with you?" she asked. The boy lifted his tired eyes to her. "I'm hungry," I haven't eaten in 2 days. Linda felt a pang of sympathy. Without hesitation, she led him inside, gave him a plate full of food, and let him bathe in her bathroom. While he was washing up, she rushed to a nearby thrift store and bought him some clean clothes. When she returned, Faith had just come back from church fellowship. The moment she saw the boy in their room, she was furious. "Linda, how could you bring a stranger into our room? He's filthy. What if he's dangerous?" Faith yelled. Linda sighed. "Faith, he's just a hungry child. I couldn't leave him like that." Faith stormed out, frustrated with her friend's reckless kindness. Linda felt bad, but she believed she had done the right thing. Before the boy left, he suddenly looked her in the eye and spoke in a serious tone. "Sister, please, I have something to tell you, and I beg you in God's name to not be offended. Please don't travel on Valentine's Day. The man you are going to see will use you for money rituals. You will have an accident, and your death will never be traced to him." Linda stared at him in shock before bursting into laughter. "You're just a kid. What do you know about life? Besides, the guy I'm visiting is a churchgoer. There's no way he's involved in rituals." Before leaving, the boy warned her one last time. "If you insist on going, at least fast that morning and shout back to the sender 7 times. Linda gave him few notes from the money the man she spent the night had given her and waved him off, still laughing. When he left, she only thought about what he said for a moment and went on to make an apology dinner for her friend Linda, whom have already stormed out with anger because she helped the poor boy. Later, when Faith returned and ate dinner, she told her what the boy had said, expecting her to laugh too. But Faith took it seriously. "Linda, please listen. This was no ordinary advice. You better stay home on Valentine's Day or visit someone in town instead of traveling far. After all, you have about 3 men that will be in this town that day." Linda dismissed her concerns, thinking Faith was just jealous that she had found a church-going boyfriend while Faith, whom everyone believed was holy, was still waiting for a godly man. 2 days before Valentine's Day approached, gifts poured in from Linda's numerous boyfriends. Her room overflowed with expensive items, and she was overjoyed. She has informed all of them that she was going home to spend the Valentine's Day with her mother, so none of them would ever suspect she was cheating on them. Meanwhile, that night, now before we continue, if you have watched up until now, it is because you enjoyed the story. Please be kind enough to give this video a like, drop your comments, and subscribe for more interesting stories like this. Now back to the story. John, Linda's supposed church boyfriend, sat in a dimly lit room facing an old wizard. "Are you sure you want to go through with this?" the wizard asked, his eyes gleaming in the candlelight. John hesitated before nodding. "I have no choice. My mother is sick, and my siblings are starving. I need the money." The wizard smirked. "Very well. Stab her image in this mirror, and she will be the only one to die in the accident." John gulped, his hands trembling as he took the knife. He thought of his family one last time before plunging it into the mirror. That night, Linda's mother called, her voice filled with fear. "Linda, I had a terrible dream. Please don't travel. I saw blood, and I felt something terrible was going to happen. My daughter, please listen to me. Mommy, you had a baby at 16. I'm 19 and not a single mother. Don't advise me." Linda snapped before hanging up. On Valentine's Day, Linda had woken up very early to prepare for her trip. After she had packed everything she needed, her friend Faith asked her if she had prayed the way the mysterious young boy advised, but she laughed again, saying it wasn't necessary. But Faith insisted, and when she kept refusing, Faith offered to say the prayer for her and asked her to close her eyes and only respond amen, since she didn't want to say the prayers herself. After the prayer, her friend escorted her to the park, which was unlike Faith, as she was not a morning person. When Linda asked why she offered to take her, she said her spirit isn't at peace and that she had a bad dream last night, even though she could no longer remember what happened in the dream. Linda shook her head, smiling while calling her a church girl, which they both laughed about. They reached the park, she bought her tickets, and boarded the bus. As the bus left, Faith went to a corner in the park to say more prayers for her friend before heading home. The bus moved smoothly and Linda was enjoying the ride and almost dozing off when suddenly, the driver let out a loud cry, screaming that the bus brake was no longer working. Everybody began to panic and call on their God. At this point, Linda became very scared, remembering what the young boy, her mom, and her friend had told her. Immediately she started to scream back to the sender at the top of her voice. Their bus began to tumble many times until it ran into an old house by the roadside. In a matter of minutes, people filmed the accident scene, snapping pictures and sending to blogs. When her boyfriend John saw it, he was very happy. Even though he felt bad that Linda didn't make it, he was super excited that he was going to be rich. He quickly called his friends and they went to a party, although he never told them why he was celebrating. His friends were just there to eat and drink as they liked. Faith had just come back from evening fellowship when she picked her phone and saw the news. She was devastated and quickly called Linda's mom to inform her that her daughter was actually in that bus. Agnes felt the entire world crumbling against her feet. She screamed out loudly, and although broken and shattered, she began to pray as they both rushed to the accident scene. By the time they arrived at the accident scene, the rescue team had already divided the bodies of the ones who died and the ones who survived, but to their greatest shock they heard only one girl died in the crash, the other only sustained minor to major injuries. Scared and with shaking hands, they searched through but couldn't see Linda among the living. "Madam, check the other girl by that side now. She is the only person who didn't survive this," one RASU officer shouted to Linda's mother. "My daughter can never die, please. I must keep checking her among the living." After hours of searching, she summoned the courage to go and see the other girl, confirmed dead, and lo and behold, her precious daughter was lying in a pool of her blood. Her tears knew no bounds as she called out her name amidst tears. Her friend Faith too was crying alongside her until something happened. A butterfly perched on Linda's finger and she shook. Surprised and terrified, Linda's mother shouted out to the medical team, saying her daughter moved, and when they checked, indeed her breathing was back. She was rushed to the hospital where she regained consciousness 3 days later. Seeing how lean her mother had become in just 3 days, she felt really bad for how she had always treated her mother, and yet she loved her unconditionally. "Thank God you are awake, my precious daughter. I can't imagine this life without you." Linda, moved to tears by her mother's words, immediately apologized to her mother, promising to be a good girl. "Mommy, I'm sorry for all the pains I have caused you. I don't know what came over me," Linda said with tears in her eyes. "You are my precious daughter, and a mother can never reject her child. I knew you were just acting as a kid, but I am happy for this repentance." 2 weeks after she was discharged, she gave her life to Christ and began going to church with her mother and praying with her roommate morning and night.